Hey, what's going on? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone. Today we're going to do a video that everybody's been asking for. I've been trying to figure out a way to do this video and I don't know, it's been driving me insane. As you know, if you've been following this channel for a little bit, we unboxed them on our last live video. I bought a set of Fishman Fluence modern pickups. We're going to put those in a Schecter that I've got here, and we're going to probably compare them to some EMGs. I've got some EMGs coming. Both of those things, actually. Thank you so much to the Patreon people over on Patreon who have been helping us out with the channel, helping us to be able to buy this kind of stuff so that we can do these tests. Super cool stuff. We are going to put this set of Fluence Moderns in a guitar, do some tests, talk about them, etc., normal everything. However, I want to figure out how these things work. Fishman Fluence pickups are a completely different technology than any other regular coil wound pickup, right? So as we obviously know, a guitar coil pickup, a normal magnetic pickup, is just a coil of wire wrapped around some magnets, right? And of course there's different placements, humbuckers and P90s and that sort of stuff. But let's just talk about a normal single coil. It's just a coil wrapped around magnets and two wires coming out of the bottom. It's a wire hooked up to each end of that coil. Pretty basic stuff, really, when it comes down to it. Now, the sound of that pickup is determined by all kinds of things. The dimension of the coil, how short, how tall, how fat, how thin this way, the gauge of the wire, the strength of the magnets, all those sorts of things. There's a bunch of factors that go into it. But the mechanism itself is very, very simple. And the electronics behind it is very, very simple. It's just magnets and wire that when the magnetic field is disturbed by the steel string, it creates a voltage and we have sound. That's the short version of it. Fishman Fluence pickups do the same thing, but then there's this battery involved, and they say that there's these printed circuit board coils that are stacked and they can tune them and all this stuff. And the more research I've done online, the less I feel like I know about them. So here's what happens. Every time you research these things, it's the same like marketing thing. You could pretty much just read the box, right? And get the same amount of information. They're kind of tight-lipped about it, which I understand because it's a really cool new design. So pretty much the only way we can figure this thing out, I bought another one, okay? Zounds.com. Bought another one, single coil, easier because we can take the cover off. But then I took the cover off and there's just not a whole lot to see. So as far as I know, the only other way to do it is cut it in half. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this Fishman Fluence single coil pickup, we're going to cut it in half, we're going to look inside there, and we're going to see how this thing works and some very interesting peculiarities about this pickup that maybe nobody's ever seen before. Now, there is going to be no sound sample in this video, and we are going to take a perfectly good pickup and cut it in half. I know that many of you are going to jump in the comments with objections to both of those things, but here's the deal. And I've been getting a lot of this in my comments, so I'm going to address this. The whole premise of Dylan Talks Tone is not to tell you how your guitar sounds. There are millions of other channels. If you want to Google what does this pickup sound like, you can do that and be met with 100 different how this pickup sounds in various different guitars. But as to my knowledge, to this point, there is not one video on the internet that really dives into how it works. And that goes for a lot of things. So we spend our time on this channel talking about how your guitar works, not what it sounds like. You can find that everywhere. But to break down how something works and look inside there and really see what's going on, that's what I do. That's what Dylan Talks Tone is all about. On top of that, sometimes it takes cutting something in half to find out what's really going on, because nobody has had the guts to go buy one of these things, cut this thing in half, and see what's inside. And I get all kinds of people in the comments all the time. It's a perfectly good pickup. How come blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you just have to, you know? Koenigsegg, McLaren, all the high-end guitar or all the high-end car manufacturers have to crash a car before they can sell it. We got to cut this thing in half before we can know what's going on inside. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go do it. Pretty crazy, right? So there's a couple of very interesting things going on inside this pickup. It's really hard to see, so maybe we'll do some graphic overlays. Maybe I'll try to help you see what's going on. Basically, it's exactly what they say it is on the internet. It is these plastic printed circuit board wafers that have coils printed in them. So like traces, basically, of copper printed in them, and then they stack them up, and here you can see like the overall mass of a coil. It looks like a square from the end when you cut it off, but you can see it on both sides of the magnets. Now you also notice that it's got this like black plastic cross in the middle of it. So that black plastic cross in the middle, first of all, the up and down part is just where the magnets go through, so that's no big deal. That's like any center core of a pickup is going to have that like void in the middle because that's where the magnets are. But the one that goes horizontally is interesting because basically what they've got is they've got a coil on the bottom and a coil on the top. So this thing, in effect, is a stacked single coil. I don't know what they're doing for internal wiring polarity-wise, but I would assume that this is a stacked single coil, just like any other stacked single coil, so that it would be noiseless. Now, there's another very interesting... Okay, before we get to the very interesting part, and then if you look at the top of the coil, you'll see like all these little holes with copper around them. This is typical with a double-sided circuit board, so that when they stack them up, those can basically act as more or less like the contacts between the layers, so that cumulatively then you have all these layers all connected together as one effective coil, even though you have, it's like taking the windings, taking a set of windings of, let's just say, I don't know, whatever, but let's just say there's 100 windings in this one, and then there's 100 windings in this one, and now you have 200 stacked on top of each other, and those little copper circles, it appears to me anyway, like that's what they're using, because when you cut it from the end, you can see it, to like make sure everything contacts and talks to the one below it, so it all acts as a collective coil. Okay. Now, one very peculiar thing about this is really interesting. Notice how the top coil is shifted to one side and the bottom coil is shifted to the other side, so that there's about 1/8 of an inch where the coil is kicked over to one side and it's not touching up against, but it's very close to the magnet on one side, and then there's a gap on the other, and then the other coil below it is the opposite direction. I've never seen this before because it's you can't really do this with a regular single coil. What they're doing, it appears, is that they're basically just selecting a section of the pickup to work, more or less like a coil tap. So when you coil tap a regular pickup. Basically what you're doing is you're winding some windings onto the pickup, and then you are running an extra wire off and only using a third or a half or 2/3 or 3/4 of that coil when you have that coil tapped. The difference is when you do a regular coil tap, you're using more or less the inner versus the outer part of the coil, right? So you wind up, so many thousand winds, then you tap off of that, and then you continue to wind outside of that. That's a conventional coil tap. But what they can do here that's totally different is they can pick from top to bottom, or they can shape that coil however they want, because they can make it, upper or lower or inner or outer. They could do probably whatever they want with it depending on how they design that coil. It's really neat because it's something you can shape it in ways, and you can choose sections of the coil that you couldn't choose with a regular normal wind. Very, very cool stuff. And then if you look at the bottom, there's this other spot where it looks like collectively everything comes together, and then it's just got 2 traces with 2 wires coming out. Really, really cool stuff. So is it going to sound exactly like a single coil? They're going to get really close because people are really good at this stuff, and we're in the 2020s, man. They're going to figure it out. It's very, very cool. It's a completely different way of doing a noiseless single coil. I did not know it was stacked like that. Very, very cool. Regular Alnico magnets, so that's very cool. And tunable in ways that you can't normally have in a regular single coil pickup. Super cool stuff, man. Hopefully this helps. It's a really different thing. Have you tried it? This is one of these technologies where no matter how traditional you are a guitar player, or kind of, old-fashioned you are about guitar stuff, I would recommend you give these things a shot, because, it's the future. This kind of stuff is gonna catch on, and it is gonna keep going. Very, very cool. So in our next couple videos, I don't know when we're gonna do it, the next week or two, we'll do another video where we take the Fishman Fluence Moderns and we put them in a guitar and talk about them in relation to a regular conventional set of humbuckers. Not mine. We're not going to use mine. We'll probably just use the Duncan design ones that are in the guitar versus those Fluence Moderns. And then we're going to go ahead and grab some EMGs. Again, thank you so much to Patreon and everybody over on Patreon who made this possible, to buy a pickup that we could cut apart, to buy a set that we could give away, because we're going to give away all these pickups when we're done. I'm not keeping them. In fact, maybe we'll give away the cut up one so you can see it, and maybe I'll cut it up in a couple of pieces and give it away, because just so you can see what's inside. I haven't seen one of these things cut in half before, so super cool. Anyway, my name is Dylan. This is Dylan Talks Zone. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next time. Let me know what you're doing to hang in there with all this staying in one spot. Obviously, we're stuck in a driveway, and just kind of chilling until things calm down or get back to whatever the new normal is. I'm not really sure, but that's what we got going. I was gonna save this video for Monday, but I think I'm gonna put it out right away because it's just too cool. So get in the comments and let me know what you think. Be nice. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you later.